2, declaration of a quorum. We have a
I'd like to
quorum.
make a motion to excuse Miss Lisa Glover-Jones, Miss Ruth Bell Greco, and Miss Vanessa Henriquez Pembroke.
Second.
So moved. Mrs. Lomas?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGarda?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second?
So moved. Mrs. Lomas?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance, 1.04. Let's start. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving to 1.05, report of closed session.
Is this me? Is this her? Which one's me?
I can't tell.
You're here, Vanessa. There's a thing on there.
Sorry. Glad you're here. Glad everybody's here. The Board of Education met in closed session on June 3rd and 10th, 2021 for the purpose of a discussion of legal and personnel agenda items. Moving on to 1.06, public comments. Do we have any public comments? Good. Well, nothing written. We're all good. Everything's quiet.
Everybody's on vacation.
All right, moving to 2.01, President's Report. As we prepare for the upcoming school year and the return to 5 days a week of in-person learning, we have several important events I would like to share with you this evening. We will host a Kindergarten Readiness Week for our incoming students from August 2nd through the 6th. New employee orientation is August the 11th through the 17th. We also welcome teachers back on Wednesday, August the 18th. Transition day for kindergarten, 6th and 9th grade students is Monday, August the 23rd. The first day of school is Wednesday, August 25th. Our annual Black and Orange Day celebration and back to school bash takes place on Saturday, August the 28th at Ritenour High School. That same day, we also celebrate the grand opening, can't see this, and also host our first ever color run. Let me smoosh that down. Of this Health Husky Support Center. There we go. That's hard to see it on the screen. I got it. And our first ever color run. Moving on to 2.02, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Alvin. So, board members, I'd like to recognize the 2020-2021 Hall of Fame members. So we have Hall of Fame members that we'll be inducting, and we also have a Lifetime Achievement Award recipient that'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. Due to COVID, the induction ceremony for 2020 was postponed. We didn't hold it last year, decided not to do a virtual session, and we postponed it to this year. So 2020 and 2021 inductees to the Hall of Fame. The first person is Dr. Arlene Ackerman. So Dr. Ackerman is a Ritenour High School graduate class of 1963. Dr. Ackerman started off her educational career as a teacher and a principal in St. Louis Public, as well as the University City School Districts. She was the superintendent of the year when she served as the superintendent of the San Francisco Unified School District. She was also the superintendent of the DC Public Schools. When Dr. Ackerman was the superintendent of the DC Public Schools, Dr. Janice Barclay, who serves as an executive coach for a number of our principals in the district, she was an assistant superintendent for Dr. Ackerman. So Dr. Ackerman passed away in Albuquerque, New Mexico after a long battle with an illness. So we look forward to having members of her family in attendance to receive the award. Also, Dr. Bobby Gines. Dr. Gines is Ritenour High School class of 1964. Dr. Gines was an educational leader, administrator in St. Louis Public. He was a principal in Riverview Gardens School District, and he was also an assistant superintendent in the Hickman Mills School District in Kansas City. Mr. Jim Marshall, class of 76, is a member of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. received numerous state championships as a coach, both track and field and cross country. Mr. Mervell Sellers, class of 1980, is a nationally known science fiction author focusing on paranormal suspense. And then we have a Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Mr. Don Thompson. Mr. Thompson was a longtime Ritenour teacher and coach who helped to raise thousands of dollars for the Ritenour athletic programs. This is going to be an in-person session. It's scheduled for the 24th of September, the evening before the homecoming. It's going to be in the auditorium. Invitations will be coming out from Doug Bray and his team in the next month. At this point, we have 96 members of the Hall of Fame. We have 9 Lifetime Achievement Award recipients. Very excited to welcome these new leaders to the Hall of Fame and the Lifetime Achievement Award. Concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilbright.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Jim Marshall, he's the guy that I ran with and everything, kept in touch with on and off all the years. Jim Marshall should also be noted as one that was a key to getting that statewide drug registry, for the opioids. And he was with the governor when it was signed because he was one of the major people pushing for that. And there's a family thing that goes with that. I think he had a son that succumbed to opioids. So that was as special as him being a class runner and everything. He really was a class guy. But he took his passion for this registry to the state level and pushed it through to where he was there with the governor, and the governor gave him a copy of the state statute and the pen that he signed it with.
Wonderful. Thank you for that personal connection. That's wonderful. And moving right back to you, 2.03, MSBA and SBA report.
Before we play that beautiful movie footage up there, I want to tell you briefly about the MSBA weekend that I went to down in Springfield, Missouri. Don't think of it as the COVID-19 capital of Missouri right now. Hotel, very nice, very well organized. I got to have an impromptu breakfast with our executive director of the MSBA and asked her some questions about why we're where we are and everything. And she said, people want to see different parts of the state. And I asked her how the attendance was there compared to other places, and she said the attendance here was comparable to the attendance out at St. Charles the year or two before. So people are willing to drive. There was a good amount of people. Went to a couple of good sessions. One that I always like going to the legislative update session. And if I take one thing from it, and Chris does a very good job of telling us what passed, what didn't pass, and what's on the horizon. We have 2 guys that you can say are hired guns. They're our lobbyists. And they told us flat out, we're there to lobby for our MSBA's platform. And all the legislators know that too. Oh, you're here to talk about. But when and they say, you guys just don't know how much impact you can have. Even if you don't talk to the representative or the senator, if you voice your concerns to their office, that's noted. Everything's written down and noted. And they take note of that. They both said, you don't know how much they really do take note of that. Because you have people that are elected at the grassroots level calling in mass saying, that's a bad idea. That's when they really take notice. So if I bring you one thing from that is like they really emphasize that. And it's like, keep calling, keep sending those emails to them concerned about this measure or that measure, because we are being heard. So on the horizon, when you see something come from Chris or from MSBA and it says send a note or something to your representative, take a few minutes. It doesn't have to be a long paragraph just saying, hey, this is who I am, and this is my job on the school board, we're concerned about this. Please consider not voting for it, because that sometimes could put them over the top with what they're deciding. So that was very kind of powerful from there, that they're telling us this, and coming to just being with them. The second thing I went to, and it was precipitated by something that we had up at our high school about student trafficking, child trafficking. And there's this fella, Russ Tuttle, he has this Stop Trafficking Project. It's a nonprofit thing, and he didn't say exactly why he started, but we've got a good indication that he had a personal story that he wasn't ready to share it with us. But some of the things he shared was just incredible. If you didn't hear it from him and you didn't see the pictures and everything, you'd think the guy's writing a good book of fiction. But he, with the permission of the kids and the families, he showed us some stories. And he took this 8-year-old girl, showed us her second grade picture, and took us all the way through her life up to the time she was in the hospital at 22, 23, and she was on life support a few days after the picture he showed us she died. Because of child trafficking, because of forced slavery, because of prostitution she was put into. She had like 7 abortions, she had 2 kids, both kids died because of neglect, not her neglect, the father's neglect, which was the guy that was. And some things that they wanted us to, I wrote down. And he had a list of these applications like TikTok and all those things that kids could get into, Pornhub, Snapchat, and there's probably a dozen more that I didn't even write down. He said the average kid that is viewing porn is 8 years old. And he has shown us, this phone right here is about the worst thing you can get for your kids. I know everybody has to have, and he says, everybody said, you know, I got that because I want my kid to be safe. He said, 10 minutes after the kid has this by themselves, away from mom and dad, a porn site has popped up on their phone. You know, whether they were looking for it or not, everything is geared toward anticipating what you're looking at, and then it pops up. And then the predators are on those sites. Online enticement during COVID is up 97%. Pornhub, 42 billion views per year. Snapchat, Instagram are tools for the perverts, predators, pimps, for all these people looking out to find our kids. TikTok is bad. It's probably the way he says this is about the worst application for kids there is along these lines. And he had a very good presentation for us. They do presentations at our schools, at your schools. We want to call them, contact them. They'll do a presentation for our staff first if we want. You know, he's on a mission. He's on a mission to make a dent in this. And I think if we don't talk to him, and I know, you know, it might be about dollars, it might be about convenience, it might be we want to use somebody else, but I think along with everything else we have on our plates, I think this might be something that we also want to look at, because you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. You can't say it's the poor people, it's the rich people, it's the people that it affects. And you won't know it until it spills over. This girl that he talked about another girl as well. For 5 years, she lived at home. Her parents, mom, full-time mother, didn't work outside the house. Dad, 9 to 5 kind of guy, never worked the weekends. And she was used as in the sex trade. But she couldn't tell her parents because of the threats that people made. And as I just listened to this, I wanted to be here, but wow. I just walked out of there going, wow. He told us, he said, it's all true, you can check it all out. I'm not here to lie to you, I'm not here to sell you anything. But we got a problem. It was probably the most powerful thing I took away from that whole weekend. It was worth going to that. That I hope somehow or another, I mean, Julie's probably all over it. She's probably 5 steps ahead of what I just told you. But I think we do need to bring it into the classrooms, bring it into the high schools, bring it into the auditoriums, bring it into wherever. If it costs us, so be it. If we could save one kid from going through all that these kids went through, that he talked about, then, it's well worth it to me. So that was his name and everything's right there. Gave that to Chris. They changed things up a little bit as far as we used to have a dinner. They'd have the awards and everything then. This time it was a lunch. They announced the Belcher Awards. They announced all the different school districts that won awards, statewide awards. They also talked about the board member certification awards and handed those out. They recognized people that got like 2 awards at the same time, or 2 levels, like the advanced and masters and everything. I think there are about 4 people that did that. Talked to a young man, just when you think everything's going well everywhere and you're happy to be there and you want to talk to different school boards and school districts. I talked to a young guy from St. James. He's starting his 2nd year as a board member. And I met him, I had dinner with him, and he and I were talking. He says, yeah, this is my 2nd year. He says, you should have seen the first year I was on the board. He says, the first few months, superintendent retired, the board president retired, moved out of the district, and 2 other senior members of their administrative staff retired within a month. So they had to replace just about all their leadership along with the board member. First thing, swear you in and then let's go. So he says, but everything worked out. They followed their procedures, the policies, and they got everything filled out. He says their school district is in a very good position right now. Had lunch with 3 superintendents, and we have our kids, we have our budget, we have our problems, so we think that it's. I wonder if anybody else has having problems. Well, that's all the same thing. The 3 superintendents could agree that no matter how many kids they have in the school, they still have the same problem. Not enough time, not enough resources. And they were looking for just the same amount of resources, and they were networking together, and it was great to see them there. Talked to another guy from a very small school district outside of Kansas City. And he said he has a principal for high school, and he's the same principal for middle school and elementary school. They have about 300 kids in their school district. So just when you think it's hard to find a principal for a middle school or something, pick one that does the high school and elementary school at the same time. So they all have their unique challenges, but it was great to know and great to see that everybody was there for the same reason. Statewide officers for MSBA were systematically elected. They gave very good speeches about what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go. A couple of things we changed as far as the bylaws and things like that, very minor, like wording changes and things like that. But overall, a lot of good people there, talked to a lot of good people. If I got one thing to say about the hotel, they had a beautiful restaurant area. that they couldn't open because they didn't have enough employees. And it probably could hold a couple hundred people, but they don't have enough employees to man everything. So if you want to get something to eat, get it ordered at the bar and then they bring it out to you. It was around other hotels. It was around the fringes of the college there. So if you wanted to go out and get some food or go to a restaurant, you were going to drive probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes away, but there was plenty of things to go do as far as restaurants. But it was a good time. It was a good place. And if we go there again next year, I would really invite and recommend everybody go too. They had a lot of breakout sessions. I think they had 4 breakout sessions every time. And yeah, I did ask, by the way, during our breakfast, I did ask one more point. You know, when MSBA bought their office in Columbia, the thought was we have this Holiday Inn right across the street, and we could use that as a point to go to, and it's just centrally located. Holiday Inns are, and I didn't know this, I thought Holiday Inn owned them all. They're franchises. And the people that own that franchise, anytime MSBA would go to them, they'd say, you know what, that $100 room is now $250 for you guys. And they were running the price up so high that they said, we didn't want our people to afford it. So that, because of COVID, because of all this stuff, the people that owned it went bankrupt. Corporate Holiday Inn took it back, and now they're going to have different people own it. So they're going to go talk to them and see if there's a chance that they can get a deal from MSBA for a weekend there. So stay tuned. We might be going back to Columbia, a nice 45, 50-minute drive, right, Chris?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And see a lot more people. But I think it was well attended. I always hope to see more, but it was a good weekend, and I appreciate it. Everybody let me go. So now, if we may, let's see what Brent has to say.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report for the month of July. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the federal funding available to Missouri school districts designed to address the impact of COVID-19. Missouri is set to receive nearly $2 billion under the American Rescue Plan's Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, sometimes called ESSER 3. 90% of that money will be distributed to local education agencies, mostly local school districts. Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, Dr. Carrie Monzes, told school board members attending the recent MSBA Igniting Great Ideas Summit, school districts can use the money to address a number of key issues related to COVID-19, including the need for additional instructional time for students.
Anything you can do to enhance your learning opportunities outside of the traditional school year, whether that's summer school or some type of intensive tutoring, after school programming. I don't know that communities automatically think that has to be sustainable moving forward. We've had more and less summer school over the years, so here's an area where you can make a short-term investment. Hopefully it's sustainable, but even if it's not, every minute you get with a student that you don't have now is important. So to the extent you can advance those programs in your district, I think it's going to have a huge return for you and your students.
Monzes says school districts must submit a multi-year plan for using their allocation of ESSER 3 money to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education by August 23rd. However, he says those plans may be adjusted in the future. He urges school boards and administrators to be transparent and engage stakeholders on the use of the federal money. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has submitted a plan to the U.S. Department of Education for the use of its share of the ESSER 3 funding. DESE's priorities for the funding include investing in the educator workforce, resources for learning acceleration, and addressing the digital divide. Speaking of the digital divide, a new poll released by the National School Boards Action Center shows 2/3 of voters nationally say lack of adequate broadband and internet access outside of school buildings is an important issue to address. The poll reveals voters' attitudes about their children's educational experiences during the pandemic and also conveys the challenges and opportunities voters see facing our public schools. Past MSBA President Rhonda Gilstrap of the Blue Springs School District is one of 7 members of the National School Boards Action Center Board of Directors, and she reported on the poll results at the MSBA Delegate Assembly meeting in Springfield on June 18th.
Voters are significantly more likely to have a positive view of public education when they think of schools locally as opposed to nationally. Learning loss among students is a huge issue for voters as we continue to grapple with COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, voters say the top challenge their local public schools have faced during the pandemic is students having quality broadband and internet access at home to attend school online. Support for increased funding for public education is strong. Voters are opposed to taking away taxpayer dollars from public education to go toward private school vouchers. And there is broad overall support for personalized learning and increasing access to internet and broadband.
The bipartisan poll was conducted in April and reached 1,000 likely 2022 voters nationwide. The National School Boards Action Center provides national grassroots advocacy on issues important to school board members and public education. Nancy Masterson, a school board member from the Camdenton R3 School District, is the new president of the Missouri School Boards Association. Masterson became MSBA president at the conclusion of the 2021 MSBA Igniting Great Ideas Summit held in Springfield June 18th and 19th. She has served as president-elect of MSBA for the past year. She spoke to those attending the second general session of the Igniting Great Ideas Summit.
This year, as in years past, we will need to light the tinder of your enthusiasm to press forward when needed to do what is best for all children. The year ahead looks challenging. We must be persistent, well-informed, yet professional, kind, and unshakable when addressing the needs of our students with legislators and the press.
Ray Murphy of the Richards R5 School District was elected president-elect by the MSBA Delegate Assembly. Ruth Johnson of the Raymore Peculiar School District was elected vice president of MSBA. Linda Doherty of the Nixa Public Schools will serve as immediate past president for the coming year. Registration is now open for the 2021 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators to be held November 5th through 7th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature numerous breakout sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, along with a great lineup of general session speakers, all in the new location at the Kansas City Convention Center. And don't forget the 2021 Safe Schools and Colleges Forum, sponsored by MSBA Center for Education Safety, will be held this year on November 4th in conjunction with the annual conference in Kansas City. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
One other session I want to make note of, and I know all the schools and all companies right now are having that same problem. There's another breakout session that talked about hiring teachers. Some schools, districts are having problems even hiring administrators. And they don't have anything to draw from. You know, the out-of-state school districts, like where my grandkids go to school, population in the whole county is 8,000 people. And it covers like 327 square miles. They're looking for teachers, they're desperate for teachers, and they're coming up with all kinds of innovative ways. What works for one might work for another, what might not work for us. But that's another thing that we can sit here and say, yeah, you know, we might be lucky. I don't know. We can talk to Mike and say still got people applying. One school district said they put out an ad for all the people they need, and so far in a month they haven't had any applicants. This is a small school district, a rural area, but still. You got kids coming to a classroom, you can teach teachers. But they did reiterate the fact that the governor is one of the main things he wants to look at and push for is higher pay for teachers. Which I don't know if they'll help or not, but it might entice some. And with that, Madam President, that's my report.
Any questions or comments? Thank you for your work and your service.
My pleasure.
Moving to 2.04, the special school district report.
I have nothing.
Nothing
We
report.
did not meet.
All right, then we'll move to 3.01, personnel recommendations. And Dr. Michael Chance.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
I'm here to present personnel items 1 through 32. I'm open to any comments or questions you may have.
Number 2, sorry. Is that a surprise? I didn't,
Yes, it's a surprise.
there was a reason given at all.
Yes, related to the children, and she will not be working next year based on the needs of her children. So we've encouraged her to stay in touch, in contact with the school district, so that when she's ready to return, we can have further conversation.
What, number 4?
Number 4 was offered an opportunity in industry that paid a much higher rate.
I didn't write down the numbers, but there are a couple that it says they don't have their certificate or their license yet. I think we're not concerned about that.
No, several were staff members or members who had applied who were either coming from another state. It was a matter of Missouri issues a certificate once they've secured employment, and then Missouri issues their teaching certificate. That is the case with most of those that are pending.
Number 7 is from Mizzou, so.
Yeah, that staff or that candidate actually is someone that had worked in the area locally and then had been out of state and is now returning from out of state. So things, at times, certificates can lapse, and it's just a matter of getting into.
What about number 9?
So that staff member that candidate just recently completed requirements and was just waiting for the state to come through with this.
Okay. Number 10.
So number 10 is that staff member is seeking certification through the social work certification. They have the ability to work as a social worker without the certification, and that one is actually pending, and we expect completion to be completed sometime during the school year, and we provided a deadline of May that it would need to be completed.
But it's okay for them to work without it?
It is.
Okay.
And currently working in industry without, or working in a setting as a social worker without.
Is it an LCSW that they're trying to take?
Yes.
They have to work so many hours. I want to be somebody to
typically coordinated through a university.
I did have a question with number 5. How many vacancies does that leave us at in that position? Was it just that one, or is, I'm sorry, number 4? I'm sorry, 4.
Number 5, we're just hoping to hire one substitute left, and we're extending an offer and waiting for a callback. Number 4, that's the only position. So we anticipate posting tomorrow, and then or we can fill that position by the next board meeting.
Any other questions?
I just want to make sure that number 16 is the thing that was brought to our attention in your email.
Yes,
Is that correct?
that's number
Okay.
16.
That's what
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then number 13, that all worked out, I'm assuming because of that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. That number 13, that staff member was very interested in that position, applied for the position, interviewed for the position, and was selected for the position.
Will be approved positions 1 through 32 as presented.
All right, any other second?
Second.
All right. Mrs. Lonis?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGarden?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Gilberto?
Oh, yes.
And Ms. Enriquez? And I also vote yes.
So where does that put us next?
So that's a great question. That was, as you mentioned
earlier.
earlier, I was on the phone with a local district that still has 60 teacher positions to fill. There is a major teacher shortage in our region, also affecting some districts more than others. We are currently looking for 1 instructional coach, 4 teachers, 2 of which are at high school, 2 at Hake. We need a counselor that we'll be posting for tomorrow, an office professional position, and those are also difficult to fill currently. Maintenance, 1 position, also difficult to fill, so we may need to reach out to local rank-in or other places to try to get some people who are currently in training, and 2 custodians and 1 teacher today. That's currently the openings that we have. We have plans and backup plans, backup plans.
Thank you, Dr. Bucci.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Moving on to 3.02, board member comments. Do we have any comments from the board?
I just would like to announce that the Kiwanis Club, the Ritenour Kiwanis Club, is still looking for members, and we have an upcoming event on the 17th, which is on this Saturday, and it is, we have police officers, we have our air officers coming, 1 from Oberlin and 2 from St. Anne. And the last one we had was with the fire department came from Oberlin, and the kids got to turn the water on and shoot it, and it was pretty fun. They get a big charge out of that, and they're getting ready. In our last meeting, we made a motion to purchase almost 100 fully supplied backpacks to donate to Ritenour kids, and I'm not sure when that is. I think they do that as a separate event. I offered to let them do it at our Black and Orange Day or with one of the open houses, but they said last year they did it at some kind of some event that they personally have. I don't know how that all works, so still.
Well, that's wonderful. When do you meet? What time and where?
We meet on Thursdays. Makes it hard for me to come to. But my husband's involved, and it's good for him. So they tried it. They used to meet at Nick and Elena's, then the COVID, so they're doing Zoom. But I think next month it will be Nick and Elena's, and it's at 6. And it's always, I think, the first Thursday of the month. So always looking for more members. And would love to. In fact, I'm going to The next one in August, we're having different groups represented, and our president said she wanted to get somebody from We Power, and I said, I have a connection. So hopefully she can come and be that, help with that. So they're doing something every third Saturday of the month at the Overland Market.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you.
The thing when they did the bad thing about when we had the fire department there was the pressure from the, what do you call it, the hydrant that they were using wound up tearing up the water thing in the middle of the street. So water was running everywhere. They had to call the water company. Anyway, I guess it was meant to happen though. It was obviously bad. And that was the only thing that I wanted to report that week.
And I noticed that the Overland Lions Fair is actually going to be going on this year, so it's going to be August the 26th to the 29th. So I saw the advertisements on the way here. So
Yeah,
I'm
me
assuming
too.
that the Norman Myers
Mhm.
was still like usual. So I'm very much looking forward to that to start up again.
I don't know if I should announce it here or what, but just wanted to invite you all to, I've been helping organize an educational equity fair that's going to be happening in St. Charles at the Youth and Youth Building off of 70. So we have two panels. Actually, Janaya is going to be on the panel. Just speaking about equity in education and why it's important. And so we have different vendors and stuff that will be there, like selling, products and stuff like that too. But we'll also have, like We Power will be there. But then if we have any sort of like equity committee within the district, if they want to set up a table, it's free. So we're kind of taking in people if they want to do that. But we're going to have cotton candy and face painting and just, it's going to be a fun family friendly event. Oh, that would help, huh? It's next Saturday, July 17th. Yep, the 17th, from noon to 4. The panel, the student panel, and then there's an educators panel right before that. That's from like 2 to 4. So if you would like to go, even just to support Janaya and listen to her story, she's going to be telling a bit of her story within Ritenour School District, so that'll be really great as well to see. So I just wanted to invite you all.
No, absolutely. Thank you for
And it's
sharing.
Youth in Need in St. Charles.
Youth and Need in St. Charles, yeah. And bring a blanket. Because we don't know if we have enough seating and stuff, so we're trying to make it cool, make this fun, get your picnic stuff. So,
Anything else?
I think as we come back to what we believe was hoped to be normal, we want to look at those other things that the board can do. Kansas City, be a good thing for people to go to. It might help you with I know it's on the other side of the state, but there's a lot of breakout sessions that you can get a lot of good information from. You might be able to pick up some of those training credits that you need. It's always good. I always say it's the discussion the board has is more than anything else. We get us around a dining table somewhere and you get to talk to each other and have a discussion about various things. It helps out a lot. When you can go to a session during the daytime and then talk about that with our board members while it's fresh in your mind, it might be something worthwhile. Nationally, NSBA is going back to San Diego, I believe, and that'll be early in April. So for those of you that have to plan everything 6 months in advance, I think we got enough time to plan it. Think about it. It'll be a long weekend. It'll probably be from Thursday to a Monday. But I think you could be aggressive enough to sign up for all those breakout sessions, go to the general sessions. It's always worth being there. And again, fellowship not only with the board members you see here, but with 6,000 or 7,000 other people there, you can really learn some things from them as well. So I would greatly just emphasize that, please think about it.
No, thank you.
Just to align with some of the conversations that have already happened, I know, Brad, you mentioned about the sex trafficking just within our district. Keaton Strong, that's the work that he done before he came to our district. He was like #3 in the state of Missouri for being
Yeah, Kristen told me.
a sex trafficking detective. And him and Julie have done work in the district specifically surrounding the apps with parents and families. I think it would be great if we could have some of those presentations go out in full blast.
You know, one of the things he didn't say was, you know, these are dangerous things to have, these smartphones. But he never really said, you can still get your kid a phone, but get them like a flip phone or something. You know, there's no.
And those are some of the things that, from the presentation that I've set in with Keaton and Julie when they do it, he gives you some of those strategies and suggestions and how to identify what they call those fake apps or the apps where they have the fake accounts and stuff like that. He works with you to help you identify those things. So that piece, I think, is beneficial to the families and communicating with them because kids are gonna, if they don't get it through their parents, they'll figure out a way to get it. So you want to educate them on the safety of it. So that may be something that we want to consider down the line. In regards to conferences, I don't know, I know that for the NSBA, they have different groups that people can also join. And one of those groups is the Council of Urban Boards of Education, the Q Council. And I know, like, sometimes, I know, for me, I feel when I go to some conferences, especially like NSBA, it may not necessarily, information always pertains to some of the challenges or struggles that our students within our district are having. So something to take into consideration, the annual Q Council conference is coming up in September in Atlanta, Georgia. One of their primary speakers will be Mae Jemison, the engineering physician, former NASA astronaut, as well as Edward Olmos. He's an activist. But one of the things that I appreciate or that I'm learning and watching some of the information that comes out from the Q conference is that they really focus on trying to address some of those issues that more urban districts may have. So creating a network in that space also may be something that we want to take into consideration. And I have information here about the upcoming conference.
Thank you, ma'am.
As I say, can we share that on the Friday memo?
Share this information on Friday night? Sure.
And I know Dr. DeBar had even mentioned like possibly sending some of our staff in the district or us participating in that conference just because there are other districts in the St. Louis area that are members of that Q organization. But just because it's a space where it's like, okay, well, you understand what we're going through. And I'm not saying that the other school districts when we go to MSBA don't understand, but sometimes it's great to be in that networking space with similar challenges, similar problems to discuss those things. Just something to take into consideration.
Thank you for doing all the research effort. That's awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Are we all good? All right, we can move to the consent agenda item.
A motion to approve consent agenda items 4.01 through 4.04 as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Lonis?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. DeGarden?
Yes.
Ms. Glover-Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Lovrecka?
Yes.
Ms. Henriquez-Miller?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Moving on to 5.01.
Motion that we reconvene in closed session per state statute 610-021 for the purpose of discussion of personnel agenda items.
Second.
Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. DeGarden?
Yes.
Ms. Lovrecka?
Yes.
Ms. Lovrecka?
Yes.
And Ms. Enrico Pimblett?
Yes.
So moved, and I also vote yes.